If everybody can put on silent, we'll start. Okay, good morning. So we are in the middle of... If everybody can put on silent, we'll start. So we are now in the middle of Hemshech Tzadik Daled. That's 5694. We're on page 54. Okay.
There is no Hemshech Tzadik Daled, right? Only this one, which is printed in Tafshin Yud Daled.
Not that I know of. Okay. So we added yesterday in the discussion of the two general levels of rotzen, desire, what he called either rotzen hanelim and rotzen hagole, concealed desire or revealed. Oy, he said, koyach harotzen, the power of desire and desire. So rotzen gole or rotzen mamish is like the word sinner. It's an active channel. It's channeling the soul's interest in pursuing and being drawn to whatever the object of the desire is. That's what he called it, defined it a number of times this way. Rotzen hanelim or koyach harotzen. And now he introduced the word machshava, says it's called machshava because it's not an actual desire in the sense, the desire as interpreted as sinner, as being drawn to. It's a heskem vehechlet. That's what he called it. It's a resolve and a determination, muchlet, yes, an absolute determination that this is roi, worthy to want, but it's not any active way pursuing it. So it's an active desire. There was a stimulation, there was an inspiration. We're not talking about something that remains wired in the etzem hanefesh, what he called ratzon hamuchlet, batzmusei. We're not talking about that. We're talking there was a activated, the ratzon has been activated from its completely dormant state, but it's not been activated to the point that it's pursuing the object. So he says that's why we call it machshava, because ratzon, real ratzon is sinner, is being drawn to it. That there's a hespilus, there's an excitement, there's a passion, there's movement, basically. Here, the desire is all within yourself. It's there, but there's no movement. There's no being drawn to. There's no, before he used the word hishtekukus, there's a lot of words that he used. Hatoya, hamshacha, hishtekukus. Now he uses the word hispilus. Okay. That's essentially sums up. So there's two levels of the desire. So why did he call it two levels in Ratzon? Because B'chlalus, in general, there are two stages in desire. You cannot reach the stage of being drawn to something if you don't first have the determination that you want to be drawn to it, as he made clear. But it could be a time, Meshech Zman, he says it could take time. It could take Shanim Rabbis, was his word. Rabbis B'Shanim. Meshech Zman Rav, Rabbis B'Shanim, could take a long time until the first level of Ratzon or Machshava reaches the second level. But when it does reach, it's coming from the first one. It just took time. Okay. So we're in the middle of page 54, and all this is coming to explain the levels of ayin that we talk about, the interface, the channel between Yesh Amiti and Yesh Hanivri, remember, is Oir, and in this Oir, there's two levels. The ayin, the Oir that relates to Atzmus, that reflects Atzmus, and the Oir that relates to existence. And explaining this, he's explaining the Ratzon that arises in this Oir. That's what we're in the middle of here. But we'll get back to that, and this is all an explanation of Ayin Beis, pages, essentially the bottom of pages 1147 through 1149, which of course we'll get back to when we're done with the Frierdiker Rebbe's elaboration. As I pointed out, I'll say it again, a lot of this is an elaboration on Ayin Beis that I just mentioned, page 1147 to 1149. But the Rebbe Rashab referred to early Ayin Beis, and Friedrich Rebbe is actually quoting entire sections, entire swaths of sections from Ayin Beis with explanation. So whatever we've been reading is essentially from Ayin Beis, chapter 64, 65. Soon he's going to go back to earlier chapters, 59, 60. And then we will return to, he's going to bring it back to the two levels of Ayin and understanding what that is all about. Okay. So we're middle of page 54, the line that begins, again, if you go to ayinbeis.com, you can access the PDFs of these pages. Okay. So the line that we're up to is Mispal ala dover. That's the line. So the last lines we learned is like this. He said, Avla heskem eine rotzen bihispilus. Adayin. Ki imachshava. This level of rotzen, the heskem, the fact that you determine this is worthy of wanting, and therefore it's a determination. It's after shakavetari. You're no longer deliberating or reflecting on it. It's not his spilus adayin. It's not yet, let's call it, it's not yet, what's the word, energized or passionate. In other words, it's there, but it's not energized. So it's ki'im machshava. It's a thought. It's like thought. And what is this thought? And what does that mean? That is determined and resolved in his thought, that he should desire this. I will move the ladayin. I'm just reading what we read yesterday, just want to have the flow. I will move the ladayin be'erech miliyas mispal ala dover hanirtza. But it's still, even though it's determined, but it's still removed in relation the erech. It's removed the erech miliyas mispal ala dover hanirtza kamesha mispal barotz nagali. It's relatively removed from being excited about this thing, meaning to pursue it, the desired objective, whatever it is that you're desiring. It's removed from the next state when it does come alive in the Ratzon Hagali, which is the next level, the lower level of Ratzon. And here we continue now. And therefore, so now we've established it's there. It's not concealed in the sense that it's not before stimulation. It's been stimulated, it's been inspired, but it's inspired to desire. So it remains in this level of machshava, removed relatively from once you actively begin to pursue it. And as I said, this can take years, it can take minutes. It can be immediate, actually. It doesn't mention that, but it doesn't say anywhere it can be immediate. You could have that desire and right away pursue it. But it's not necessarily so, so therefore it's two stages. So now he says like this, Ulechein, and therefore, hine haheskim, this determination, and now he's going to add new words. This is, again, Friedrich Rebbe, every word he dissects, he's very precise with language. So he's adding words that we didn't hear before, but it's all in the same context. So let's read it slowly. This determination we just established, which is the higher level of Ratzon, he calls now Machshava, this level, it's the root of the power of desire. Now, interesting, till now, if you remember back to a few pages back, he said either Ratzon or Koyach HaRatzon. So you would think this level is Koyach HaRatzon. Now he calls it Sheidish Koyach HaRatzon. It's not a contradiction because as the Friedrich Rebbe continues to develop the idea, he's breaking it into more details. Now that we've established that Ratzon is Sinner, is actually being drawn, and the level where you determine, since it's not being drawn to it, it's not pursuing it, it's not actively an excited state of pursuit, so we call it Machshava. So it could be, now he's saying it's a shadish of the Koyach HaRatzon, basically the root of the power of desire that will pursue it. That's how I would explain why he's saying these words. Umokir, and also, now he says, shadish of the Koyach HaRatzon, umokir Ratzon hanelam. Now he says it's the Mokr of the Ratzon. So he's using both words that he said. The Oy, he said before, was either Koyach HaRatzon or Ratzon HaNelam, concealed desire. Now he's saying is the shadish of the power of desire and the source for the hidden desire. Now, there's too few words here for us to understand what he's exactly saying, because what we have here is like so many different ways to look at it. Let me just point out, just summing up. But since every word is precise, maybe we could try to figure it out. But I'd rather read on and then maybe go back to it. But let me just say this for the record. Initially, he said there are two levels of desire. They're called either the power of desire, or concealed desire and revealed desire, and desire. That's what he said. He repeated that a few times. Okay, and explained the difference between the two. We know the difference. But now, he went further and said that this determination, this what we called earlier seemingly the power of desire or the concealed desire, and we discussed, is it synonymous? Is it a little different? Here it seems like it's a little different. Now he says that this heskem, this achlota, this determination is the root of the power of desire and the source of the hidden desire. So we have here is, I count three levels. The power, the
Source
source,
is deeper than roots, right?
the root of the power of desire, the power of desire, koyach haratzon, and the ratzon gali mamish, the actual pursuit. And the same thing with the nelam, the source of the hidden desire, and the actual desire. The actual is always the same, the third level. But now it seems like there's a third level. I'm just saying that between us. I'm not going to elaborate because he's not elaborating. I mean, I could speculate, but I'd rather not speculate until we finish the whole subject matter, because it could very well be he's going to refer to it again. I'm just pointing out that if you're really precise, you see he's adding the word sherish and moker, sherish and koyach haratzon and moker of koyach haratzon hanela. That's it. As you know,
is deeper than
my
shirish,
approach in
right?
teaching, in learning, is I'm not going to go now and start speculating because we're in the middle of a subject matter. I know you'd love to do that, but I'm not going to do that. So if you have questions, you could ask as many questions you like, but I'm going to try to just learn inside and then go back and see if we understand this better. But do you want to say something? I see you're itching to say something. Go ahead. Hello?
No, I'm just, you said you don't want to talk about it now.
You have
think
something to
that
say? Go ahead. I'm
Mocker-
saying my approach would be, there's too little here for me to explain. I'd rather see the whole subject matter. But if you want to say this is a free country, you could speak.
Mocker is, I think, deeper than shirish.
No, Mocker is closer to the thing than Shadish is, just for the record.
Yeah.
Shadish is always a root, and Mocker is a closer source, generally speaking. But again, what does that help us? That we know that. So my suggestion is, I made the point because we read it now. I would say let's read on, learn it, and then we can come back and see what the summary. We're patient. You don't have to have it all figured out right now. But the sentence is not over. Let's go back. Now this heskim, which he says, shehu shed is the root of the power of desire, and the source for the hidden desire, choluk, is different than merotzin hagole, from the revealed desire, v'harotzin demuhus mitziyusei, hu hatoye v'hamshocha lo'esa adover shehu reitze. So now here too, he suddenly is now making it like two things. Remember, there was a oy in the beginning of the chapter which sounded like that. So now it sounds like Ratzon Hagole also has an oy. So he says this level, which is the heskim, the resolve, the determination, he says, which is the root of the power of desire and the source for the concealed desire, is different than the revealed desire, which we know is being drawn, or maybe not. Maybe now Ratzon Gali means it's revealed, not concealed. One second, where did I do? not oi. He says veharotzen, and different than the rotzen that's mohus mitziyusei. Remember when we spoke about the personality of rotzen, he kept using the word mohus mitziyusei, meaning what is the mohus of the mitziyus? I'm thinking now that rotzen goli is the mitziyus of rotzen, and the hatoyev amshach is the mohus of the mitziyus of rotzen, both in the lower level of rotzen. That's what I suspect is pshat here, now that I'm reading it this way. No, rotzen goli means it's no longer just a determination, but you're actively pursuing it, which means it's revealed now, it's stimulated. And then when you break it down further, it's the active pursuit. I would say two things. It's revealed versus concealed, like the machshava can be concealed because you're not doing anything about it. You're just determined, only you know about it. Ratzon Gali means it's revealed. Others see it, you're speaking about it, and then there's the mitzvahus of the mitzvahs is you're actually pursuing it. Hatoyev amshacha, you're pursuing it, and you're drawn to it. That's what it looks like he's saying, but he doesn't say oy here. He just says the two ratzon. But the key point he wants to make.
This is the explanation for the question that we had before. You remember in the beginning of the Zion, this struggle.
I'm just talking about that. That's exactly what I referred to. Yes, but there he said oy, and here he doesn't say oy. He said hu kedem l'ratzon agole oy haratzon dem hus mitziyusei hu atoyev amshach le'esedavar. Yeah, it confirms what we spoke about there. He just doesn't say oy. I'm just pointing out. He doesn't say or. He just says and. But the point is hatoyev amshacha le'esedavar shehu reitza. So now he's made the statement. It's different. In what makes it different? He says b'mekaim amidosan be'evri hanefesh. So it's not just that there are two conceptual different states of desire, the hechlet, the heskim, which is determination, and the revealed desire and the pursuit. They actually have two different localities in their geography. In the Evri HaNefesh, meaning in the limbs, the organs, in the place of the Nefesh, they have a different they have a different location. That's what he's adding now. This is a Friedrich Rebbe addition. This is not Ayin Beis. This is a Friedrich Rebbe explaining. Okay, now he has to explain. In other words, they really have two different locations. Just like when you say the power of sight in the nefesh and the power of sound, even though it's not physical location, but they're two different localities in the brain or in the nefesh. So he's going to explain now what this means. Just as the body, you see again the style of the Friedrich Rebbe. I just want to emphasize it. He never just says something. He goes and analyzes it. Remember before when he spoke about Shaka V'Tarya? He went into the whole thing, Chemer, Tzura, Tikkun, explaining Chachma, Bina, Das. Even though that's not what he wants to get at, but he analyzes it before he goes back to what the punchline he wants to say. A lot more elaboration in Chassidus. So he says now, just like the guf, just like when it comes to the physical body, Yesh Evarim, Evarim are limbs. Evarim, the arms, the legs, the heart is considered an aver. The mind, the brain is an aver. There's limbs. Sometimes Evarim can be limbs or organs even. But limbs doesn't just mean arms and legs. Here means, Evarim means limbs and organs. V'chelukim zeh mizeh. And these organs or limbs are distinguished one from another. They're different. B'maila umato. In their location, in their quality of maila mata. Something that's superior, something that's inferior. Actually, maila mata, he actually means physical location. I'm sorry. I thought he meant conceptual maila mata. Maybe both. But he says that these evarim are separate from one another in their hierarchy. Shareish l'mayla ma'alev. The head is above the heart. A human being who walks upright, the head is here, the heart is in the chest. Va'alev l'mayla ma'akovid. And the heart is above the liver. Just for the record, the liver, melech leiv kovid, which is Rosh Tevis melech, Moyach Leiv Kovid is Rosh Tevis Melech, king, is because that's the order in how a king, a person who's in control of their lives, functions. First comes mind, emotions, and Kovid, even though it means technically liver, it refers to all the other organs that are that so-called beneath the heart. So mind, emotions, and you can say implementation, like Chabad Chagas Nihi. So he says, so there's a hierarchy. They're different than one another, these Evarim. The mind is above the heart's above the liver or above the whole, let's call it the lower part of the body. So just as it is with Evarim Gashmim, the physical limbs and organs I will use here, organs may be better. In the body, Hine Kamoi Kain. Now the same thing, Gam Benefesh Yesh Evarim. The nefesh also has organs. What he means is functions. Obviously, it's not physical like it is in the body. It means it has evarim, has distinct forces at work or distinct functions. Shem keiches hanefesh. These are the faculties of the soul. So the eyes is the Ever Haguf. Its corresponding is the Kayach Hariyah and the Nefesh, which is the power to see. If the brain is in the body, the mind is in the brain, the power to conceive ideas, the intelligence. The heart is in the body, it's called the heart. The corresponding faculty is emotions. And the same thing with all the others. So he's saying, just like there's Evari Haguf, Evri Haguf, there's Evri HaNeshama. Yesh Evarim Shem Keren. V'gam heim chilukim be'elyon v'tachten. And they too, like it is in the body, are distinguished in a hierarchy of higher and lower. Kifi geder mailoson biyuchuson ela etzem. So now in the body, it also says physical location, besides conceptual location, conceptual quality. Not just here, what is the elyon and tachten in the nefesh? In the nefesh, we know there's no physical higher and lower. So he says it's kifi geder mailoson, commensurate according to the realm of their quality, biyuchusim, in their relationship with the etzem hanefesh, with the etzem. In other words, what distinguishes one aver of the neshama, one faculty of the soul over another, is its qualitative relationship with the etzem from where it originates. Now, I'll just explain since he doesn't say it specifically. So just as the head is above the heart, the mind is above the emotions. So the koyach haseichel in the nefesh is higher in quality conceptually than the koyach midas in the nefesh. I have to qualify that. Sometimes it says the midas are rooted higher, but let's for argument's sake say right now. Why? Because the seichel reflects more of what the nefesh is about than the midas do. They both come from the soul. But because its relationship with the seichel will be far more reflective of what the nefesh wants. I would say even more. Ratzon, we're going to learn in a moment, is even more reflective of the soul than seichel and midas. So just as an example, okay. Now, if you argue that midas have a deeper root than seichel, why? Because midas express the passions of the soul, which seichel is not passionate. So the same idea. The point is, I'm not getting into which is the hierarchy right now. I'm just pointing out, he's explaining that there is a hierarchy. There are levels. Remember, he said, mokim amidosan. And he's going to explain how two levels of desire have a different locality or conceptual location. Ukanal, it could be Kumeshin Nisbaralil or Niskalil. As we learned earlier, if you remember back when he gave the example of that in you can have levels, but not an etzem. So he's saying ukanal, he's referring to that. Ukanal, the kol hakechsem ra gilui ma'nefesh. All the faculties are just revelations and reflections of the soul. That's why the energy in the faculties are different. The mind is different than the toe nail. In the etzem, the lo etzem. They're not etzem. In the etzem achayis, the life force in the human body, the head and the toenail are equal, as we learned. But in the Giluyim of the Keiches, of the Nefesh, which is the Keiches HaNefesh, there's a hierarchy of a superior faculty, a more powerful one, and a lesser powerful one. The Geder Hagili, Friedrich Rebbe says, the realm of revelation, when you say something is in the Geder of Gilui means, as opposed to Etzem. Etzem is an entity to itself. It's the source. It's the essence of whatever it may be. Gilui is its reflection. It's being revealed. As I pointed out a number of times, the Rebbe would quote this very, very often. When you turn on a light in a room, in a dark room, what happens? Let's analyze it for a moment. What does the light accomplish? The fact is, it doesn't accomplish anything in material way. Everything in the room is there. Chairs, tables, steps, doors, bookcases, whatever you have in the room. The difference is when the light is turned on, you can see it. So you don't bump into it or you know how to use it. So Eir does not create anything. It reveals things. It reveals either the source or it reveals whatever is where it's shining. So when he says the Geder of Gilui, when you say something is Gilui, who Geder Haseder Dafke. That's a Geder that's a hierarchical realm. Because that's what Gilui is. Gilui is not creating something. So Gilui is about order, the order of things. That means that there's a structure. That's what he said earlier as well. So therefore, Eir is subject to levels. It's interesting that he says Geder HaGilui, Geder HaSeder, because you could argue, one second, you reveal something since when? You know, is there a difference from the Eir's point of view, one thing or another? Like we pointed out many times, when the sun shines, the sunlight shines on a pile of garbage just like on a palace. But that's because Eir is not Makabel Shinuyim. The Eir is not impacted by what it's revealing. But the fact of the matter is that revelation is by definition revealing structure. Because Etzem doesn't need revelation and Etzem is not even subject to structure. So structure is basically a component of Gili. This needs more discussion, explanation, I'll be honest with you. Understanding basically, he's saying it briefly here that Oyer, if you remember, I'm referring back to when he first spoke about this. This was back on page, this is also Ayin Beis 1147, but back on page, he gave the example of the Nefesh. Just a second. Eravuka, where is it? Oh, on page 51. So he said these words. The difference between Atzmi and Eir is Atzmi, wherever the Atzmi is Etzem. It's not subject to levels. You can't break an Etzem into pieces and say this is more of the Etzem, this is less of the Etzem. That's why the Etzem HaNefesh equalizes the head to the toenail. But when it comes to Eir, he said, so Etzem Ayin Beis shum miyat klal. I'm reading from page 51. Kol kamash nimshach, it's all Atzmi. But Eir, he says, so basically he's saying that Eir, it's Gilui, it reveals, but now he's saying the Geder of Gilui is the Geder of order. So you have to say that because Gilui is subject to diminishment, where Etzem is not, so Eir, besides being Gilui, Gilui includes hierarchy and order, which means that there are things being diminished. That's how I would ostensibly explain it. There's probably more to say on this, but let's suffice for now. So what has he established? That there's a hierarchy. There's a place for each organ. There's a place for each faculty, just like it is in the body. Now he's going back to Ratzon. So now that we've established that in the Giluyim of the Nefesh, meaning the faculties of the Nefesh, as the Nefesh reflects in different faculties or attributes, there's an order. He says, V'chein hu ba'heskim v'rotzen. The same is with the heskim and the rotzen, the determination and the desire. he's clearly saying the Heskim is the first level. Ratzon is an active desire that's revealed and pursuing. So he says, Shechalukim b'mkeim amidosam, that they're distinguished not just in their conceptually, but also in their location, their conceptual location in the nefesh. So now he's going to explain. So what's the distinction? Shaharotzen hagoloi, the revealed desire, who became amidase benefesh. I'm sorry, he named became amidase benefesh. Now its location in the nefesh, again, conceptual location. Who bedarge kazu, it's in such a level, shu korev el hapoil, that's close to and relates to v'shayach el hapula. It's close to the action, to the implementation, I should say, and relates to the implementation. Yeah, because why? The Ratzon Gali, remember, is pursuing. It's not just a determination in the soul, in the machshava, that a person determines it's good and it could take years till it's going to be activated and pursue what it desires. This Ratzon, he says, its makim is in a place that is closer to and relates to the desired objective, because it's pursuing it. That's how the Frierdiker Rebbe explains it. Okay. Ulechein poil gam hispilus ba nefesh. He's going back to hispilus, and that's why this level of Ratzon causes a hispilus, an excitement. Pirush. I mean, based on what he's saying now, it sounds like the excitement is that you're excited that you're going to get what you desire. Till now, it was just a determination, and that was it. It was residing within you, settled, determined, but there's no action going on, meaning no pursuit. Now, because you're pursuing, therefore, the fact that you're anticipating that you're going to have the home that you desired, or whatever the object of the desire is, it creates an excitement. He doesn't say it explicitly, but it sounds to me that that's the difference. You don't have an excitement, but you just made a determination. You're not even reaching toward it. Now that you're reaching, you're excited and anticipation of when you're going to get it. Like we know, once a desire is active and in pursuit and yearning, there's a spilus benefesh, pirush, and he explains what he means. Being that it's Eiver HaNefesh, it's not Etzem HaNefesh. It's an Eiver, it's a faculty, like he said, a faculty of the soul. He's using Eiver in obviously it's a more ethereal Eiver. It's not an Eiver like an arm or a leg or a brain or a heart. Since it's an Eiver HaNefesh, Ashazeh in Yonoi. And what is the inyan? What is the personality, the identity of this Eiver? Liyese Bahatoya. Its identity is to be inclined and drawn to, or you could say inclined and pursuing or drawn to the thing that he desires. Oh, I didn't read it right. Pirush. So that's its personality, and therefore this level of Ratzon is closer to and relates to, and therefore it gets excited because it's relating to the object. The first of la Heskim, on the other hand, the Heskim, the determination. It's an Eiver in the nefesh, it's a faculty in the soul that is in such a level that is removed from the object of desire, and therefore there's no excitement because you're not. It's just a determination. There's no relationship with it happening b'poil. Frankly, if you got excited, it would move to the next level of Ratzon. Okay, so what has he established? He's basically explaining that these two levels of Heskim, determination, and a revealed active desire pursuing are like two localities, like two different conceptual locations in the nefesh. Not sure what he wants to say. I think he wants to say is that they're actually two different states. They're not just the same state, it's just two different stages. which you could explain. It's two stages. One stage is you deliberate and you come to determination. And stage two is when the determination turns an active pursuit. Here it sounds like Mori wants to make a case that no, it's two different locations, like Moyech and Lev, the two levels of Ratzon are two different, or Haskemen and Ratzon are two locations. Not positive, but I'm just speculating why it makes why is so important to establish that they're two locations. Again, conceptual locations. I think it's to distinguish how separate they are, probably. Okay. Valderech HaHefresh, and he's now going to compare it. This difference between resolve or determination, which is more removed from the pursuit and the resulting actualization of whatever it is you desire, is like the difference between bein haseichel u'midas shal pi seichel. The difference between intelligence and emotions that are guided by intelligence, that are basically emotions that are outgrowth and guided by intelligence, va'ikar midas shal pi tam v'das, and primarily midas that are logical, rational emotions. Well, we need another explanation. What's the difference between midas al pi seichel and midas al pi tam v'das? I mean, he doesn't explain. Briefly, what I would say is that midas al pi seichel, maybe he means chochmah, and tam v'das is bina and das. Maybe. In other words, generally midas can be emotions that are not logical. You know, we have an emotional urge, an emotional reaction to something. It doesn't necessarily, it's driven by seichel. Very often it's not. The whole, in Tanya makes a big case that the midas of the nefesh habamis are interested in their own needs. And you need moyach shalat al alev to impose and control yourself. So emotions generally are not guided by seichel. But then there are emotions that are guided by seichel. In other words, the mind has agreed, or more importantly, the mind has come to the conclusion that it's worthy having such a midah. So you contemplate on the greatness of the universe, as the Rambam's Ketzid Yovel Avosili Rase. You contemplate on the greatness of the universe, and you come to Ava, to a midah. That's a midah, al pi seichel. The seichel led you there. It could be tam v'das is not just the concept, like we said before with bina and das. It could be that it's also tam v'das, which will explain why it's called tam v'das. That's also like tam is a reason, but it also means taste. That maybe it's a little more elaborated through bina and das. I'm guessing, I'm not sure that's what he means, but he does say midas al pi seichel and befrat.
You sure he's differentiating? Maybe he's just explaining what seichel means. I don't know.
Because he says va'ikar. He's saying, he doesn't say dahainu. He says midas al pi seichel va'ikar, and primarily midas al pi tam v'das. So it could be that there's two levels how midas work based on seichel, either seichel and there's midas al pi tam v'das. It could be what I just said is correct. Maybe there's another explanation. The midas shall be so right now. The key thing he wants to say, 1 second, is the distinction between these two levels of heskem, resolve and determination, and active pursuit, a rotzen that's actively pursuing and is anticipating and excited, is al derech, the difference between intelligence and the midas that grow out of intelligence. Yeah, what do you want to say?
No, the hefresh between seichel and midas. What kind of midas? Midas al pi seichel.
What are you talking about? No.
The chiluk is the seichel and midas. Midas al pi seichel and iker midas al pi tam v'das. But he said the hefresh ben seichel and midas. Then he's explaining what kind of midas.
I disagree entirely, because midas that are not al pi seichel is not what he's talking about here. I would not read it that way. The hefresh ben seichel and midas shall pi seichel.
So what is Beho Ikel?
I just explained it for 5 minutes. I said perhaps he's talking about midas al pi seichel is chachmeh and tam v'das is bina and das. I don't see how you can read it otherwise, to be honest.
I still don't understand the Hoiker. Maybe, of course, there is a difference between Midas al Pesach and
I just tried to explain it for the last 5 minutes. I just tried explaining the difference between Chochmah and Bina and Das, based on what he said on top of the page. Maybe not. If a different explanation, I said maybe it's a different explanation. But I don't see how you could read Seichel and Midas, and then what? How do you read the next line?
Aderech ha'efresh ben Seichel und Midas. And he's explaining Midas al Seichel.
What do you mean? You're repeating the word Midas twice? No, 1 second. I don't see how you could read that line that way. Read it yourself. Read it to yourself. The line doesn't make sense if you read it that way. The Seichel and Midas, comma, continue. Shal pi Seichel? What's Shal pi Seichel? And either way, you still need to explain Va'ikir. He says Al pi Seichel, and then he says Va'ikir. So whatever you read it, you still have 2 ways, Al pi Seichel and Al pi Tam V'das.
Ha'hefresh between Seichel and Midas al pi Tam V'das. And Be'iker, the Hefresh, no, ben Seichel.
You know what? Do me a favor. Do me a favor. 1 second. 1 second. 1 second. I am reading it the way I understand. Read it to yourself. Let me continue. And if you have a different way to read it, fine. I don't see any other way, to be very honest. Okay. The Midas shall be Seichel. Now he's going to explain the difference between the two. Midas shall be Seichel. Oh, actually, he's going to explain the difference between Midas al pi Seichel and Midas al pi Tam V'das. You know what? All this has been futile because he's actually going to explain. He says, the Midas shall pi Seichel, ha-Seichel, heimrak bechein. The emotions that come out of intelligence Seichel, are just the bechein means the what's it called? The practical difference. In other words, it's not the full emotional experience. Bottom line, you had a contemplation that led to midas. So midas al pi Seichel means. So what do we conclude? What's our bechein? What do we go away with? The bechein ein bo chayis. Bechein does not have vitality. It's just the resulting action. It's not based on, it's not filled with energy and vitality and passion. Bechein. It's like someone coming and after the whole meeting, when everybody got excited, so what's the final result? You say to the secretary, here's the conclusion, go ahead and implement it. So it doesn't have any chayis. It's the conclusion of a whole process. Umidas shal pi Tam V'das, on the other hand, yesh b'em chayis. The midas al pi Tam V'das have vitality. In other words, we're not just talking about the end result of what we're going to implement based on this whole process. They have vitality. Ulechein b'midas shal pi Seichel, Ulechem b'midas shal pi Seichel, hu rak ha'avona ba'atuv, ba'atev v'lo tev. In midas that go according to intelligence, no, it's intelligent midas. The havana, the understanding, is only in the what is right and what is not right, what is good and what is not good. Umidas shal pi Tam V'das, midas that are rational, midas al pi Tam V'das, hinegam ha'avana b'teitza esav shel atev v'lo tev. Hinegam ha'avana b'teitza esav shel atev v'lo tev. It's not just the conclusion that this is right or this is wrong or this is good or not good. It's also in the implications of what is good and what is not good.
Is that impact? The
What?
impact, is that the impact of the meter we're talking about then?
Yeah, it certainly looks like it. Look, I'm reading as we are all together. I don't have it exactly figured out yet. I don't know where he's going. I just want to read one thing. I want to just see something. Okay, we'll go back and see where he's going here. So right now he's distinguishing between seichel, midas al pi seichel, and midas al pi tam v'das. Generally, as I said, you'd think it's synonymous. Or tam v'das is seichel. But he's making a distinction. No. There's midas al pi seichel, and that he says is more the conclusion, the bechein, and the actual what's it's good or not good. Basically the result, the actual conclusion. Whereas midas al pi tam v'das is also involved in the process, and not just in the conclusion, but also the implications and the consequences. That means that of the good and the not good. I have ways to explain it, but I want to see how he's going to. Let's read further. And we actually see that when a person sees something that is very beloved, or the opposite, something that he fundamentally despises and dislikes. So when that happens, at times, at times he'll be stimulated and inspired and drawn to the thing that is beloved. Or he will retreat backwards and be repelled from the thing that is hated, the thing that is fundamentally hated, despised. And both of them are a state of stimulation. Both of them are a state of, it's midas. You're actually feeling something. You're either feeling being drawn, that's a feeling, love draws you. Hate or fear, he doesn't say fear, but it's the same idea, repels. You're repelled by it. This is an emotion. It's not an intellectual concept. It's a palpable hispilus. Hispilus generally means excitement, but hispilus really means stimulated, an emotional stimulation, an emotional experience. You're actually feeling it.
Closer to the midas. It's very, now it's becoming gelled in my mind. It's much closer to midas.
This is midas. Okay, well, let's see where he's going. 1 second, he didn't finish. 1 second. So the pomim, he doesn't say all the time. When a person sees something beloved or something that is fundamentally despicable or despises, so he'll be meseder b'amshoche ala dover of, or retreat and be repelled by the despised thing, the hated thing. V'shneim hem b'ispilus gdela. Not just hispilus gdela. They're both a very great stimulation or a powerful stimulated state. You're basically not neutral. You're not apathetic. Fahainu, this means shehu bikiruv el adovar. That means he relates to the thing. He's close to it. Because if he was distant and detached or aloof, and it was just an intellectual process, just pure seichel, so seichel, you don't have a reaction. You don't have an emotional reaction. You understand this is good, this is bad. It's a detached, aloof state. But midas are not that way. Midas are defined by hispilus. So it means he's close to the thing. And when you're close to it, you feel it. You experience it. And because close means here, not just physically close, it means you're relating to it, and it causes you to have a strong reaction. And at times, at times, even when he understands with his mind that the thing is good for him, or the opposite, that the thing is destructive. Something healthy, something unhealthy. And nevertheless, he doesn't get excited over it. It doesn't stimulate him. He doesn't react. He doesn't get stimulated in a state that he should be drawn to the thing that is good for him, that is beloved. or to retreat from something that can be destructive. He's detached. Because he's removed and detached from the thing. So you see clearly the difference between seichel and midas al pi seichel. Asher sibas hakiru v'arichuk, the cause for being drawn to something, for closeness or retreating, distancing, it comes from the actual personality, the essential personality of intellect, in contrast to emotions. Ukanal, as we learned earlier, the meichin midas he mayim ve'esh. Intellect and emotions are water and fire, like water and fire. The midas, page 55. Midas are like fire. Their personality is blazing, is spilus. It's actively excitable and chmimus and heat and passion. And they relate to the thing that is beloved or despised. And that's why they react in one of the movements. Or with love and being drawn to it, or fear and retreat backwards. Repulsion. Which is like water, their personality is mesinus v'krirus. How do we translate mesinus? Mesinus, gelassen. They are more settled. V'krirus, and cool. Cool means like aloof, detached. And they stand at a distance. They stand at a distance, removed and aloof from the beloved thing or the despised thing. And that's why the mind does not get excited, does not react, because intellect by definition is removed from the thing it's thinking about. So it could fully understand something that is beloved and even know it's good for you, understand something that's despised and know it's destructive and dangerous, but a true mind does not get excited by it. It remains very cool and collected. Midas are like fire, that's like water. Midas, like fire, are passionate, are excited, are excitable, both in the reaction, whether to be drawn to something or to be repulsed by it. And his conclusion now is to say that this is similar, this is an example for the difference between the two levels of Ratzon. Is how he concludes. Similar to this is the concealed desire. It's a very exalted level in the spirit. It's removed from the pale. Remember, it's just a determination. It's not pursuing anything. So though he was stimulated and inspired, and the thing was determined by him, that this is good, this is the right thing to desire, nevertheless, he's not excited by it. He's not reacting to it. That he should actually have an actual ratzon to pursue and be drawn to it. It's a conceptual thing. It's worthy of being wanted, desired. So there's a certain detachment from it. V'adrabah. I think we should stop here because also I have something else I must do very quickly, shortly. This I see is still going on and on. I will just say one thing. The midas al pi seichel and midas al pi tam v'das is, my opinion, is a maimer hamuzgar, more or less. Not completely, because the main difference he wants to explain here is seichel and midas. But not just midas. Midas al pi seichel. Or al pi tam, or be'ikar al pi tam v'das. And he explains why he says be'ikar, because tam v'das is the midas far more alive. Whereas the midah al pi seichel, as he said, you don't have that hispilus. It's just the conclusion. Is the conclusion that this is good for you or it's not good for you? And you understand the good or the not good, but the implications are not there. When you know and understand the implications, tamadas, the teitzos, then you get far more excited about it, and therefore the reaction is more hispilus. So even though midas al pi seichel compared to seichel also have this distinction, but be'ikr it's al pi tam v'das, because that's where the most excitable element of the emotions manifest, as opposed to seichel, which is cool and collected and aloof and detached from the experience. We'll talk about it some more, but that really does it. We're on top of page 55. We'll stop here.
Brilliant stuff. Wow.
Yeah.
It's the application to you.
CMM.
Us.